Hi, everyone, and welcome to our last installment of our Emu Talk series, hosted by Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County and the American Emu Association. This week, our speaker is Maria Minnaar Bailey. She was born in Sweden, raised in Zimbabwe, and emigrated to the United States in 1983. She's farmed emus from 1987 to 1995 and has conducted extensive research on different types of ratites with emphasis on emus. She's also the author and illustrator of the Emu Farmer's Handbook, or Handbooks, Volumes 1 and 2, which were published in 1992 and 1998, respectively. She was a founding member of the American Emu Association from its charter in 1989 and is still an active AEA member, although she no longer farms emus. She's also participated in field research on captive cassowaries with Todd Green. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Texas Women's University and a Master's of Physician Assistant Studies from the University of Texas Southwestern Medical School. She currently works as a physician assistant at an urgent care clinic in Neosho, Missouri, and she lives with her husband, Martin Bailey, in Joplin, Missouri. And in her spare time, Maria enjoys going kayaking, bird watching, and hiking with Martin, and playing Zimbabwean marimbas in a band in Joplin. How fun. And she kindly shared a confession with us for this introductory bio. Maria says she once needed to move a larger group of yearling emus to a new pen and happened to be dog sitting my friend's little wiener dog, Banger. The emus absolutely hated that dog, as they did most small animals, and would try to stomp him anytime he got close. Taking advantage of this, Maria put Banger on a leash, ran him down the alley with the emus in hot pursuit, and got all the emus moved in record time. The dog was unharmed, but Maria never did tell her friend about it, I guess until now. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Maria for her presentation from chicks to adults and emu farming overview. Maria, please take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steph, and thank you to everyone who is joining us for this presentation. And Steph told me that you, the audience, would be a mixed group of people. Many of you are just interested in emu farming, want to know more about it. Some of you may have been farming emus for some time. So I am going to be presenting an overview of emu farming from A to Z in 40 minutes. So we will do what we can. Some of you have seen or heard this information before, and some of you haven't. I hope everyone comes out on the other end of the presentation with something new that they learned. And if not, just enjoy the pictures. So as I was saying, you know, I am the author of 2 emu farming handbooks, and the reason for that is that when we first started farming emus back in the 1980s, there was nothing printed about emu farming, so we had to do a lot of research on our own. That included dissections of dead birds, taking pictures of internal organs, consulting with a lot of veterinarians, and eventually coming up with 2 books, the Emu Farmer's Handbook Volume 1 and Volume 2. They are currently out of print, but we are working on getting some slightly cheaper versions, but with that are soft cover and not, you know, hard cover like that, but just so that people can have the information, because there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. It took years and years to write these books and compile all the information and put skeletons together and, you know, do research on everything from feed to diseases to just general management of emus. So we don't want to have anybody have to go through all that again. The purpose of books and resources is so that you can be that wise person who learns from the mistakes of others and not from your own mistakes like some of us had to. So I will start the presentation now. And so here we go. A short overview of a very, very big topic, and of course questions and answers at the end, and feel free to type your questions as we go along, and then Steph will we'll discuss everything at the end. Okay, so first of all, I know some of you have already seen previous talks that were sponsored here by the Cornell Extension Co-op, and there's been some very good talks, and I've enjoyed watching those too. So some of it is a little bit of a recap, and here we go. I think, oh no, maybe, yeah, there we go. You've seen this picture before. It's out of the first Emu Farmer's Handbook, and this just shows where the different ratites come from. So the emu belongs to a family of birds called the ratites, got nothing to do with rats. What it is the very flat breastbone that emus and these other non-flying birds have. Because they run and they don't fly, they don't have to have those heavy flight muscles that flying birds have. So all other birds are called carinates because they have a keel-shaped breastbone. The word is from the Latin, of course. Carina means a keel, and rotus means a raft. So the raft-like or flat breastbone, that's where the word ratite comes from. So now you know, you can explain it to everybody and win a quiz or something. So anyway, we have the rheas in South America. We have the ostriches from Africa. We have emus from Australia. We have kiwis only in New Zealand on these little islands. And we have the cassowaries, which live in the northern part of Australia and also in Papua New Guinea. This is what they look like. This is an emu, as everybody knows. This is a southern cassowary, and this is a slightly different northern cassowary. These are the ones only found in Papua New Guinea. And they're quite rare and very, very beautiful. This is a nice docile bird. These will try to kill you, especially in the breeding season. So although emus' closest cousins are the cassowaries, they are vastly different in temperament. So other ratites would be, once again, here's our friend the emu. This is a common rhea. This is a Darwin's rhea that lives in Patagonia and the southern parts of South America. It's a bit smaller and rounder than the common rhea. And I was fortunate to take this photograph at the Fort Worth Zoo, where they actually let me in the pen to take the picture. So I was happy about that. Other ratites include the ostrich. Here we see two male ostriches, and if you can see the female ostrich, she's in the background there. And here's a kiwi. This one's a stuffed specimen. This is a live little kiwi chick. These are ostrich chicks. That's what they look like. And let's see. Okay. And here we have emu chicks. They're little stripy things. Cassowary chicks are very similar looking, except for this reddish brown head. And then these are rhea chicks. And then another.
Welcome to Mexico, where the local
people talking. Okay. Then we have blonde emus. As you can see, this emu here, also seen here, is a variant. It's just a lighter variant of a regular emu. It's not an albino. It might be called leucistic, which just means it's more white than a regularly colored emu. So question, why raise emus? Many of you are asking this question and thinking perhaps about it. And some of you, maybe you farmers already, you know the answers, and here they are. Emus are, they're quite tough and hardy. They can be raised in many different climates. They can be, they are resistant to a lot of diseases. They are also very productive. Each pair of birds can produce usually about 20 eggs per year, sometimes 30, sometimes 10 or 12 or 15, but still that's a lot when you consider that a cow can only produce one calf per year. They can be raised on small farms, and that's a real advantage wherever in most areas where, of course, land is expensive. And they have marketable products, which include emu meat, emu oil, emu eggshells used for decorating, and emu leather. And why not raise ostriches? Oh, let me tell you the many reasons. No, actually, there are many people who raise ostriches, and they are just a little bit more of a challenge. But in fact, ostrich farming has been an industry for way longer than emu farming. It's been going on in South Africa for over 100 years. And the products initially were the ostrich plumes. It would be, so the feathers make really beautiful plumes. They were used on ladies' hats when driving, in carriages and so forth. That kind of fell by the wayside when cars were invented. The ostrich market kind of really fell through the floor at that time, but then it came back again when they discovered, oh, ostrich leather is very beautiful and can also be used. It's very tough, very durable, and very pretty. And then, of course, ostrich meat, again, low fat, very red meat. And then again, the eggshells are very lovely. There was a farmers co-op in Klein Karoo, which started marketing these products from about 1945. And they also use ostriches in the tourism industry. They're big enough that you can actually ride the birds. Don't know that you can steer them all that well, but they can be ridden, unlike all the other ratites, which are a bit too small. And nobody would want to try to ride a cassowary. You probably would die. So anyway, the first ostrich farming book was published in 1963, manual or handbook to tell people how to do this. So here's the confession here. Yes, I've farmed ostriches too. And when I say not very smart, were we not very smart for raising them? I don't know. Anyway, ostriches themselves are not very smart. They will run repeatedly into the same fence over and over again, unless you put some sort of disc or a big white thing on the fence to where they can actually see it. They don't remember that they just ran into that same fence 5 minutes ago. So there's also the South African ostrich farmers know that they need to wear the same clothes when feeding their birds. There was a guy who forgot, and instead of his usual drab khaki clothes, went on a Sunday dressed in his Sunday clothes to feed the ostriches, his ostriches, on his own farm, and they all attacked him. So they're not smart. You have to be a bit careful. The adult males can be very aggressive during breeding season, and the chicks do easily get diseases, and they'll eat anything so they can get impacted. So, but we did learn things from ostrich, reading ostrich farming, this manual that was out of print, but we were able to obtain a copy of, and then also from visiting ostrich farmers. Now, these, of course, are emus, but the idea comes from ostrich farming. They would just do a lot of things that, you know, make use of things they already had, like cutting a tire in half to make a feed trough. Works really brilliantly for emus because they like to sit like this on their haunches, and they form a nice little circle. Looks like the emus are having a tea party around that feeding trough, and it gives everybody space around the trough. We learned how to make these little walking cages. If you want to move a group of chicks, if you've ever tried that, it's like herding cats. You cannot herd them, they scatter. So if you put them in this little walking cage with wheels, it's like a wheelbarrow, with a cloth or a barrier at the back, and maybe somebody walking in front with a feed bucket, it's really easy to move a larger group of chicks. We also learned about egg tapping. Egg tapping tapping is a method where you just use a metal rod to tap on an egg to see if the chick is soon ready to hatch. There will be a difference in sound between an egg in your incubator that's just, you know, not yet ready to hatch and one that is. And with ostriches, you can actually candle the egg or shine a light through the egg to see when the chick has broken through the airspace, which means soon it'll break through the shell, and then you better move it to the hatcher so that it's not still turning in the incubator and chicks are falling out of the trays and hatching out and causing, you know, there's a lot of fluff and eggshells now in your incubator. You don't want that. That is why you will move your hatching eggs from the incubator to the hatcher. You'll do that towards when the chicks have internally picked. So the difference in sound is very distinctive when you tap them. You're not ready to hatch and tock tock, like a really hollow kind of sound whenever it has broken through the airspace. So when those eggs have internally pipped, then you need to be moving them to the hatcher, like I said. By the way, if anybody cannot hear me, can somebody let me know, because there is a little something says that I have an unstable internet connection, but I'm not really sure if there's a problem. So if there is a problem, someone let me know, okay?
Maria, you
yes.
can try turning off your video and that might help.
Oh, okay. So let's see here. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. How do I turn off my video? Let's see. Stop video. Yes?
Yes, you're off now.
Oh, you turned it off?
Yes.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
All right. So, and you can hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So anyway, since some people who have never incubated eggs and don't know anything about hatching may not know what I'm talking about as far as a chick having pipped through the airspace. Here's some just basic drawings. Here's an egg. Yolk is in the middle. This is their airspace. The yolk is suspended by these chalaziae. And there's this little group of cells that have been, this is the fertilized little embryo right here that hasn't yet started growing. So once the egg starts incubation, then things happen. The little chick starts to grow, network of blood vessels grows out over the yolk, another network of blood vessels grows and covers the entire inside of the eggshell and basically functions as the lungs of the embryo, because air can diffuse in and out through the eggshell, and the chick can get oxygen. And of course it gets nutrition from all that lovely stuff it's floating in. There's the egg white and the egg yolk, and it absorbs nutrition from there. During this time, the egg is losing weight, and this just happens by evaporation mostly, and it'll lose weight at a constant rate, and as it does so, this airspace will enlarge. And if you put the egg on a flat surface, you will notice that it starts to tilt. And as you go on, as the chick is just about ready to hatch, it's going to start poking here on that membrane and moving around in there. And the airspace is now quite large. And finally, it'll poke through the membrane and occupy the entire egg. And now it will soon make its way out of the egg. It'll actually, so now it's pipped internally, which means it went through the membrane, and all it's got to do now is pip externally, which means make the hole in the shell and then start just muscling its way out of the egg. Okay. The other thing that happens is this yolk sac here, as it gets older, it will use more and more of the yolk sac, and then just before hatch, it'll suck in that yolk sac. It'll draw it in through that navel opening. So now very little of it can be seen, and that navel will close, hopefully shortly after hatch. If it doesn't, or if a chick hatches with its yolk sac still out, you got a big problem. Anyway, this is the normal way. This is what we're hoping will happen when we're incubating eggs, or if the male is incubating eggs. Okay. On an emu farm, if you're going to be raising emus, then you are going to be taking care of eggs and incubating them and hopefully hatching out chicks. So the question is, who's going to incubate the eggs? In nature, the father emu, never the mother, is the one who incubates the eggs. So is it going to be you, or is it going to be emu dad? So if you let emu dad do the incubation, obviously less labor, obviously less costs, because you do not have to buy incubators, hatches, an incubator room, all that good stuff, because dad will just sit on the eggs and hatch them out. But there will be less chicks. Sometimes you can take that female and place it with another male and have another batch of eggs. If that other father emu is willing to raise some chicks. But typically you might only get maybe a clutch of 10, 12 eggs and chicks from natural incubation, perhaps less. Now with artificial incubation, if you keep taking eggs away, that female, just like a chicken, will keep laying until she's done for the season. So that's how you can get sometimes as much as maybe 20 or even 30 eggs in a year, although that's on the high side. They will lay one egg every 3 days on average. And then, of course, if you're going to be the emu dad, then you've got to get an incubator, you've got to fumigate it, you've got to make sure that there's good ventilation in the incubator room. And got to be able to check temperature, humidity, check for rotten eggs. That means you open the incubator and you smell. If it smells eggy, you better smell each egg individually until you find the culprit and throw it out before it explodes and contaminates the rest of your eggs. I speak from experience. This is a very terrible situation. You're going to have to do a lot of cleaning. So smell your incubator every day. If there's an eggy smell, there's a rotten egg. If you've had COVID, get somebody else to smell for you. Hopefully you'll get your sense of smell back eventually. Egg storage is another interesting thing to talk about. When the male incubates eggs, initially he'll actually cover them up with straw or dirt or something. So he actually will squat over them, but he won't start incubating. He'll wait until he has a clutch of eggs and then he'll start incubating. So the result of that is that most of the chicks hatch at the same time. So when you think about a clutch of eggs, let's say 10 eggs, one every 3 days. So over a 30-day period, you're going to get that clutch. So obviously for all those eggs to hatch at the same time, the oldest ones didn't just suddenly catch up with the other ones. No, the dad stored them and they did not start to develop. They all started to develop whenever he began to apply heat to the eggs and that's what we call incubation. So we did various experiments with egg storage. How it happened for me was I was pregnant and about to have a baby, and I knew I would need 2 weeks to, have the baby if he came in time. And so I needed to store the eggs. So the experiment was based on, I'm not going to be here and busy with other things. So we just put the eggs in the refrigerator and found that, they can be stored for 2 weeks. And then when you incubate them, they'll all hatch at the same time. And so the optimum temperature we found is 40 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. We did do more experiments later just to see how long can you store them. 4 weeks works fine. There was no significant reduction in hatchability from storing for 4 weeks. So that was kind of nice because it's good to raise chicks in batches. Then they're all the same size. they're all this, they can stimulate each other to start feeding, and big ones are not sitting on top of little ones, smothering them maybe, or, taking all the food. So here's some types of incubators and hatches. This one is a GQF style incubator. And you see, you put the eggs in the trays, and then the trays, of course, tilt one way or the other. This is based on a nature form incubator, which again tilts the trays. And there's an automatic turner, and you can set how often you want the trays to turn. And there's all kinds of gadgets, temperature, humidity gauges, and so forth. This is a hatch-right incubator or similar, that kind of incubator, which rolls the eggs instead of tilting from side to side. And finally, this is a hatcher with stationary trays in which the chicks can actually hatch, and they're not being turned and rolled around. I like this kind of incubator because if you're going to incubate in these that tilt the eggs, they don't turn the eggs usually enough, and you do have to turn them a bit extra. We did find out that it's much better to turn the eggs a full 180 degrees, so from top to bottom and then back again. You want to do that at least 3 times a day. More is not a problem. But 90 degree, if you only turn through 90 degrees, that is insufficient. And the blood vessel network inside of the egg does not develop properly, and neither does the chick. We did some experiments, me and Dr. David Mauser, who's a veterinarian, and Deborah Stewart, another emu farmer. We experimented with eggs and chicks and noticed the very different development of that network of blood vessels inside the eggs on 90 degree versus 180 degree turned eggs. So that's something quite important for a good hatch. Cleaning, if you want to be successful at incubation, if you don't have to clean eggs, that's the best situation. You want to brush off excess dirt. You don't want to be wiping it too much. If you do need to wash it, the solution should be at least 10 degrees warmer than the egg, so it's not sucking anything in, and then you pat it dry right away. If you have eggs that were laid in a pile of manure and stayed there overnight and they're really filthy dirty, maybe you should consider not incubating it, because that egg does have a greater chance of going rotten. Then regarding turning the eggs, again, as I was talking about, 180 degree turn is very important. You've got to have correct temperature. We're going to go to a chart here in a minute. You must have good airflow so that those chicks can get plenty of oxygen. Humidity, usually you'll set this at 24 to 35%. If your incubator goes by wet bulb thermometer readings, then the corresponding wet bulb would be 70 to 75 degrees. How do you know you've got the right humidity? You check how the eggs are losing weight. The goal is for the final weight to be about 15% less than the initial weight. Otherwise, the eggs are losing moisture too fast or too slow. I've made a chart for this in one of the emu farmers handbooks, because I hate math and calculations. I want to do it once and that's it. So you don't have to calculate. You can just use the chart. Here's your incubation temperatures. So the lower your temperature, the longer it takes for your eggs to hatch. So at 96 degrees, it'll take about 56 days for the eggs to hatch. If you go all the way up to 98, it'll be more like 46, 47, 48 days. We found the best hatch results at from 96.5 to 97.5 degrees. And that you're going to go from about 50, 52, maybe 54 days. And now, after you've incubated for about 50 plus days, here is the result you want to have, which is your first chick. Once that chick is hatched, he's in no hurry to start eating, because that lunchbox that he carried with him all along, which was the yolk, which then later became the yolk sac. He absorbed that through his belly button, through his navel here, and it's still connected by a little tube to his gut, and he continues to get food from that. He can live off of that probably for the first week, but you probably want to still start feeding the chicks after 2 days or so after they've hatched. And you can also give them access to water. Note how this yolk sac shrinks. This is right after hatch. And then when they are 3 weeks old, this yolk sac has shrunk to the size of a small pea. Usually, hopefully your chick is eating by now, because he'll certainly need food from something other than this. This is what chicks look like. For those who are new to emus, never hatched any chicks or eggs, this is what the eggs look like. Beautiful dark green color. The newly hatched chicks are striped, and then they just get taller and keep their stripes for about 2 months. You'll notice that there's a little, their legs have been tied together using some rubber bands or perhaps some masking tape. Some farmers do this with their little chicks just because they scrabble around a lot, and we don't want to cause any leg injuries if they are on slick surfaces. These chicks are on what looks like AstroTurf, and that usually gives good grip. And so some people just do this out of a sense of precaution to help prevent splayed leg due to injury. As soon as the chicks can go outside, let them outside. It's good for them to be stimulated by light. Sunlight will give them the vitamin D3 that they need, and they will start exercising, running around, pecking at things, and this is just very good for all the chicks. Since they do hatch in the winter or early spring, they do need warmth and shelter at night, and you can make some inside pens from collapsible dividers. Remember that raising emus is going to be seasonal. There's an on season, you know, the breeding season, laying season, and hatching chicks, and then there's off season. So you don't have to make chick facilities that are, you know, year round. You can do portable panels. So heat lamp in a corner, 10 to 12 chicks per pen, so that they don't smother each other, because they kind of like to sleep like cats, all cuddled up together. So don't let them overcrowd each other. Lots of different options are out there to make pens and shelters. Here are some of them. So this person used like screen cloth, shade cloth, material or netting material with PVC pipes. This is held together with ties, those electrical ties. This person here used the vinyl coated wire shelving, which are certainly very easy to put together and take apart. And he's got his heat lamps hanging here, and he's got some doors leading out to outside runs. So what could possibly go wrong? Oh, we should never ask that question. Actually, we should always ask that question. Murphy's Law applies to emus like it does to any other venture. Things that are most likely to go wrong: you might have diseases. There are viral and bacterial diseases that can affect emus, even though they are very tough and hardy. There are certain nematodes, that's worms, that can affect them, and some fungi or fungal diseases. If you use really moldy hay or straw, there is a horrible disease called aspergillus, where the emus can inhale the fungal spores and then die from an infection of the lungs, which basically looks like it's just fungus in the lungs. So you don't want that. Don't use moldy straw or hay. Use fresh bedding. And there's also injury is another possibility. If your birds get stressed out, if your adult birds are fighting, if there's a lot of commotion and noise and movement amongst the pens all the time, that can lead to accidents. There's also predators. We had a problem a couple of times with packs of wild dogs that were running around and would come and really bother the birds, especially at night. So that's where, you know, injuries can always happen on any farm. So try to build your pens and keep your emus in more secluded places where they're not going to be subject to those things. You can also have nutritional deficiencies because of inappropriate feed. You can have deformities, skeletal deformities, leg deformities. You may have poor growth, or the hens are not laying well, or the hens are laying soft-shelled eggs, or not laying very many eggs. You can also have poor hatchability. So remember something here. You are what you eat. And in the case of a developing chick, he is what his parents or what his mother ate. So you are what your mother eats in the case of a chick, because once that egg is laid, all the nutrition that that chick is going to get is in that lunchbox that he was provided with when the egg was laid. So if the breeder nutrition was not good, then there may not be good enough nutrition for that growing chick as well. So feed and types of feed are very, very important. So how do we fix problems? Well, it's always better to prevent problems than to fix them. So for diseases, it's better to vaccinate against the problems that we know are in our area. Better to vaccinate than to treat. Some diseases, if they're caused by bacteria, can be treated by antibiotics. It's better to avoid them, however, because think about, what are you going to do with your birds? If your birds are going to be used for their products, and if they're going to be slaughtered, maybe at the age of 12 to 14 months, then there are certain antibiotics and certain medications that are absolutely prohibited for use in food animals, and you need to be very aware of that list and never give the birds those particular medications. Also, if they have been given antibiotics, for some animals, there's a 90-day washout period before those birds can be processed. So the best thing would be to vaccinate for the diseases in your area, which could include encephalitis, like Eastern, Western Venezuelan encephalitis. There are horse vaccines for these diseases, and they can be used for emus as well. Blackleg can be a problem if you're using pens that have been previously occupied by sheep, goats, cattle, and you use those for your emus, then blackleg could possibly end up being a problem for emus as well, because it lives in the dirt. Also, regular deworming is important. There is a nematode which can invade the spinal cord of emus and cause like staggering and crooked necks and sometimes disease and death to the birds. It was a big problem in Louisiana back in the 1990s. And it was found that just regular deworming with something like ivermectin actually helped to prevent that problem. For injury, you just need to plan your facility. And I want to encourage you to use the natural vegetation that you have. Here's a very happy emu under the shade of this nice tree. If you've got brush and trees in your pens, then you've got shade for your birds. You've got visual barriers. You've got a place for them to run to if they feel stressed. And then deficiencies of minerals and vitamins and so forth. I can't say enough about how important it is to have good quality feed, because poor feed means more feed. What I mean by that is, if the feed is really bad, the emus are going to try to eat more of it to try to get the nutrients that they need. So you may not be saving yourself much money by buying poorer quality feed, because your birds are not going to be as healthy, not going to lay as well, and they're going to eat more feed. So do network with your fellow emu farmers. I encourage you to join the American Emu Association and have people that you can talk to, and especially in your area, talk to your veterinarian, your county extension agent regarding where to find good feeds and what kind of problems are found in your area that you may need to vaccinate against. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to, oh, here we go. Here's some of the deformities that we see in emus. We might see these, and often these are due to nutritional deficiencies. We may see the bowing of these leg bones. We may see the humped back. Sometimes it goes along with the bowed legs. We may see knock knees or cow hocks. Sometimes when you see this problem, it doesn't get worse and it's not as bad as splayed legs. So the splayed leg is when one leg rotates off to the side. Sometimes it happens rather quickly. And this bird has it's called poor prognosis. It means it's going to die. It's not going to make it. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse until finally the poor thing is scrabbling around in the dirt and cannot get around, and you're going to have to put it down. So this is not what you want to see in your chicks or growing birds. This twisted or crooked neck, again, could be nutritional deficiency, but sometimes it's because of the infection with that nematode that we were talking about earlier. So here's a chick with splayed leg. Often they have an enlarged joint here, and usually what's happening here, and sometimes they also have a bowing in this part of the leg. And what we usually see, when we dissect these birds after they have died, is that the tendon has slipped to one side. And in fact, this condition is commonly seen in broiler birds, broiler chickens, and broiler turkeys. So this is not a new thing. It's seen in birds that rapidly gain weight. So that would not just emus, but also chickens and turkeys. It's called perosis, P-E-R-O-S-I-S, and it is just another word for slip tendon. I think another word for it is chondrodysplasia or something like that, because the cartilage is involved, the tendon is involved, and chondrodystrophy, sorry. So anyway, you don't want to have this problem. You really don't. And so here are your healthy chicks. This is what they should look like from 3 months to about 1 year. We call these blackheads because they have blackheads. The stripes are starting to fade. Then they have this scruffy look, like most teenagers. And the head and neck are dark, and the body is kind of a brown color. And then as they approach yearling, you'll see that the feathers, they start to have less feathers on their necks, and that blue color that's characteristic of an emu starts to show through on their heads and necks. What do emus like? Well, here's one really good way to prevent stressing in emus. It's fun for your kids to do as well. Go spray the emus with water. They will all gather in front of you and wallow in the mud and have a lovely, lovely time. And during hot weather, this is a nice way to cool them off as well. But they really seem to enjoy being sprayed with a water hose. So that's something you can do, not just to cool down hot emus, but also to help reduce stress in general, because they like it. Let's talk about emu pens. So for as I was saying, for little chicks, you really don't need much in the way of a pen. Emu chicks are very small and short and just need an enclosure about 2 feet high, but they grow. So once they start growing, they grow to about the same height as me. I'm 5'2", so let's say 5.5 foot. So you probably want to end up with fences about 6 foot high for your adult birds, and they should be sturdy because emus like to walk the fence, and if they get scared, they might run jump and run into the fence and bounce against it. So when you make your fencing, you might want to do chain link or hog wire or welded wire, something that can withstand the weight of a bounced emu. Okay, and for the same reason, try to put your posts on the outside of the fence. That's not always possible, but again, that way the emu is not bouncing into posts. The gates should be opening up to a central alley. That makes life easy for you, because then you can easily go down that alley and feed the birds, move the birds, collect the eggs, and so forth. We talked about natural vegetation. Also grit or stones. Todd mentioned this in a previous talk, that birds don't have any teeth. They grind up their food in what's called the gizzard, which is that muscular stomach. And in order to do so, like most birds, they have to have some grit or small stones. They'll swallow those, and in the gizzard, those stones help to grind up the food. The pens should also have good drainage. You don't want big mud puddles forming in the pens, because again, your birds will probably find that mud puddle and lay their eggs in there, and that can be a problem. You want enough space for exercise as well. So here's just a few ideas about pen designs. And again, these are some of these pen designs are in book one, volume 1, and the other in volume 2. But what I was talking about, a central alley. Here you can walk or drive through. Here are the gates opening. These signify maybe a shelter for the birds. And hang on, let me go back one. Some people have a central gazebo and a drive through here, and then they have pens kind of radiating off of that. And then another idea is to turn your birds out into big pens during the off season. So then you can have little breeder pens where you separate the birds, into pairs for laying, and then back into the big turnout pens later in the year. And again, you've got an alley to drive through. So there's many different ways of doing emu pens. Whatever fits your land, whatever fits your budget. As far as shelters go, emus don't need much in the way of shelters, except maybe in really cold climates, like if you're living in Canada, or New York. I know it gets very cold there. These igloo type shelters are rather nice. I haven't seen this kind of thing out on the market for some time now. But Quonset type buildings, greenhouse type shelters, these are very nice because they're light, so emus will go in them, and they also insulate quite nicely. But pole barns are often used, especially in hotter regions. I think this picture was taken in Texas. This was in New Zealand, just a 2-sided shelter. Some people have 3-sided shelters. So emu breeding season, your birds are going to be mature and ready to start breeding from 2 to 3 years old. For most birds, 3 years old, but many birds do start breeding at age 2. And you'll notice a difference in behavior. These birds will start strutting and drumming, this very deep booming sound. Sometimes they will fight. The females usually get really cross with some of the males and will start chasing them. And if that keeps happening, maybe those two birds are not so well matched. Sometimes you can just separate them for a while and they will, get along a little bit later. But sometimes you have to divorce these birds and find them another mate. So the females usually are the aggressors in this case. The male gets extremely friendly during breeding season. In fact, he'll try to mate anything on 2 legs. So if you go into the pen, you may suddenly feel a nudge behind you, and here's this male looking like this, looking down at you and saying, you're very beautiful. And so, try not to be squatting down, or you may find a male emu on top of you. But if you just push him away, away with this just put your hand on his neck and push him away. He'll look very hurt, but he will move away, and he's not going to fight, and he's not going to be mean. He'll just, wait for his next, wait until somebody actually wants him to breed. So with our breeding pairs, we're usually going to have one male to one female. There's a few emu farmers who've had success with trios. You just have to do a little more work then about separating birds. And keep in mind that the male will probably try to hide the eggs when they are first laid. So you've got your male and female in the pen together. Male is breeding female lays the eggs. Male immediately goes behind her and pulls some straw or kicks some sand over the egg. So you may or may not find it. You may go into the same pen a couple of days in a row and suddenly, there you see some disturbed dirt or straw and you find a couple of eggs. So be aware that they do that. Okay, and so the breeding, we've gone from eggs to incubation to chicks to adults. So breeding season, that will happen in the winter. They are short day breeders, whether they're in Australia or in the US. So they breed and lay eggs at opposite times of the year in Australia versus the US. They will be breeding in the Australian winter, and they will be breeding in the American winter as well. So if you live in the far north, the birds will tolerate snow, but keep in mind that if an egg freezes, it cannot hatch. So you will need to be more vigilant about collecting eggs, because if they've been out in the snow for a day or two, probably that's going to be a non-viable egg. So the busiest time on an emu farm, whether you are here in the United States or Canada, or whether you're in Australia, it's going to be the fall, the winter, and the early spring. And by the time you get to summer, the chicks will be growing. You put away your chick panels, everything is out in larger pens, the egg laying has stopped, and this is the time when you can go on vacation. So emu farming, just to sum it all up, yes, it's hard work like any farming, but eventually you will be rewarded, and hopefully with nice, healthy chicks like these. And so with that, I would like to say thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry to have speeded through the presentation, but I wanted to leave some time for questions, and I hope that we do have time for questions. I do want to start my video. Okay. I do want to thank Steph with the Livestock and Natural Resources. She's an educator for the Livestock and Natural Resources with Cornell Cooperative Extension in New York. So thank you, Steph. She's also a Zoom trainer extraordinaire, because I'd never done a PowerPoint presentation via Zoom before. So thank you, Steph, for guiding me through all that. And I also want to thank the American Emu Association for starting out, for coordinating with Cornell to put together this series of videos, which I hope have been very helpful. And thank you to the American Emu Association for being there for all emu farmers. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Maria, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. That was excellent. And a huge thank you to all of our speakers who presented in this series before Maria. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, or you can click the caret next to reactions at the bottom of your Zoom screen to raise your hand. Before we get to questions, I want to turn it over to one of our co-hosts, Kimara Longergan, to say a few more words of thanks since we're ending the series, and then we'll get to questions. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I want to say thank you to Steph and Cornell Cooperative Extension Service of Ulster County, who has been extremely supportive with teaching others and bringing emu farming information to our county and to everyone across the country or wherever they have internet access. I want to thank the Tubes Band for letting us use their music for a theme song. And my lovely emu egg that's sitting behind me was created by Prairie Prince of the Tubes. And I want to thank him for donating that artwork to us. And also I need to remind everyone of the email address or the web address of the American Emu Association. It's aea-emu.org. For any information you need about emu or you want to see future presentations, check our website. We have a new blog coming out. So I will turn over to Steph for questions. Oh, and thank you, Maria. That was an awesome presentation. It's wonderful to have you. Just really amazing. So without further ado, off to Steph and questions.
Great. Thank you so much. The link to the American Emu Association webpage is now in the chat if you want to copy and paste that on your computer. Maria, we have one question in the chat so far. This person asks, why do the males, when incubating eggs, not want to eat or drink? And is that safe for the male?
Do I click my box or can I just talk?
You can just talk.
Okay, all right. Well, males have been doing this for a very long time, so I think it's perfectly safe for them. They will be losing a lot of weight. They probably are using up their fat stores to do that. They do end up pretty skinny, you know, when they're done with breeding season. I think they're just very diligent fathers and they don't want to get off of the eggs. And, you know, they also will stop breeding the female. That's why the female will sometimes go off in a huff and find another male. I think they're just that dedicated to their job. They don't want to leave their eggs.
Great. Thank you for that answer. We have a few comments in here, just great pictures, great presentation, a lot of thanks, a lot of thank yous in the chat. So good to hear you speak again, Maria, and folks are looking forward to seeing you in person at the AEA National Convention, which is next month, if you'll be attending.
I'm really excited to be there.
Fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
Are there any other questions before we end our series today?
Do I have time for a question?
Absolutely.
So Maria, I have two male emu. They're 5 years old. They were raised together. They've always been together. They have a very large area that is full of natural vegetation. There are no females due to technical errors and COVID that we couldn't get out to get them. And they've always gotten along. They've been sort of homed in a cottage, and they do go in at night. They're handled a lot. Every year around this time, they get very strange, but this year is the worst. And one of them is beating up on the other one and is resource guarding food. I separate them with a little hog panel at night. But I've not really had them behave this way towards each other. One is more dominant now than the other. What do I do?
But you've already separated them, you said.
They're separated at night. They have a big tent that they stay in that's attached to their cottage. So I put one in the cottage and one in the tent with a panel between them. But during the day, there's so many trees and areas that one can hide and the other can kind of move around. So the more dominant one is resource guarding. He's keeping the other one away from food. Will this eventually end, since this behavior comes once a year and then it kind of goes away by the fall? So do you have any insight?
I'm not sure. When did it start?
It started about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, so now is the summertime, and it usually ends by the fall.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, if they've never bred with females or
No.
been with, okay. So it just sounds like they're fighting for dominance, and many animals will do this. And the fact that they've gotten along previously doesn't necessarily mean that they will forever get along. We've had breeder pairs like that too, where they get along for several years and suddenly the female is like, oh, I don't like you anymore, get out. And you have to split them up, and it may be something that resolves or it may not. So what I would suggest is having two separate feeders in different parts of the pen, to where they can both eat, but you may be looking at splitting them permanently. Another thing that could help is, if you plan to raise or breed some emus, maybe adding females, pairing them up each with a female, that may be just the ticket. Maybe they just frustrated males. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I think with that, I just want to thank again all of our speakers, especially Maria today, for presenting over the course of the series, and our co-host, the American Emu Association. We'll be sending out a link to this recording and all the recordings in this series via email to all the registrants after this, so keep an eye out for that. The videos will also be posted on the American Emu Association webpage, as well as Cornell Cooperative Extension's page. So thank you everyone for attending. And with that, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.